Okay. Welcome in, folks. We are live. Um, man, I look like shit. I've been doing spring cleaning all day. Um, so today's topic is optics for a general purpose rifle, not a military setup, not a, dedicated oh shit rifle, not a competition rifle. If you're going to have one just general purpose setup where it doesn't matter what you're doing, it can get the job done, even if it's not necessarily ideal for a given situation. Because for a lot of people, they kind of have one setup. They've got one rifle. Noise edges. Um, and they've got to make it work. Now, they may have other rifles, but for example, if you have, say, a 30-30, a 308 bolt action, a shotgun, and an AR. Well, all the other ones are pretty specialized. They all have their place and their role. The AR is the one that can be general purpose. And I've talked about what I think a general purpose AR is in general. Whether that's, how you would set that up, what kind of configuration. But the optic really depends on you. It depends on your eyes. It depends on your environment. It depends on what your expectations are. If you are primarily a hunter who's hoping to, have it double as a home defense rifle, that's very different from somebody who is primarily building it as a shits the fan rifle that can double if needed, like, hey, my buddies want to go hog hunting and I don't have a better rifle for that. That's what I'm taking, that kind of thing. So let's talk about it. And I did the poll, and overwhelmingly people said an LPVVO. So low power variable optic. So like traditionally that's a 1-6, 1-4, 1-8. These days they go to 1-10. And these come in a wide variety of qualities. We're not talking about quality other than you have to get one good enough. You can't buy junk. For that kind of thing, I generally say, spend almost $300. That's kind of the minimum tier. You can buy a decent primary arms. You can buy a decent entry-level Vortex. Don't go under that, or you're really sacrificing usability, and you would have been better off with something else. Low power variable optics are not something you can go super cheap on and still get something decent. And really spend $400 or $500 if you're going to go that route. It makes a difference. You get a bigger view, not field of view, but like your actual. I don't even know how to describe it. Your perceived viewing area is larger. For example, it's that, not that, and you see this with a lot of optics. If you spend more money, you get better glass. And it's not just light transmission. It's not just clarity. It's not just lack of distortion. It's what you see through the glass is physically larger, not magnified, just there's more of it. And you also you get fewer aberrations. You get fewer things like, I was looking through one of the cheap loopholes yesterday. And this is a 1-6, and I had it at 1x. And I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, that's not a 1x, that's like a 1.1, 1.2. And it did it in a very distracting way because it wasn't the same across the whole thing. So when you moved, things like curved in and expanded and contracted, and it was very distracting. And when you moved your eye away from it, your eye was out of focus for a minute. You had to transition. So if you were looking and you brought the rifle up, there was that moment when your eye was not good. And when you brought the rifle down, there was another moment when the eye was not good. and I could not fix that. It was not anything I could figure out with the diopter. It was the scope was not truly a 1x and had some weird effects. I mean, that was a $400 scope. The Vortex Strike Eagle, um, same kind of thing, but not as bad. On the other hand, I got to play with the Vortex Razor, and wow, yeah, I mean, that's a beast. That thing is awesome. If I ever have the money sitting around, that's eating a hole in my pocket, that I don't have anything better to do with it, yeah, can't justify it at all. But hey, Vortex, I'm on your expert voice list. I sell the stuff. I talk about it here. If you want to make my day, I'm game. I'll do a review. Even if I don't get to keep it, even if you're sending me one, press sample and I got to send it on. But a lot of people pick that. And I think the reasoning is that gives you this ability to do like 1 or 2x, and then all the way out to 6, 8, 10, which on an AR is more than enough for almost anything if you are not talking a long range setup. If you're not talking a dedicated, long range target setup, even 8x is more than enough. And I think that has value. That is definitely, there's a reason that is a popular option. Now, I think that is, of the options, the most expensive one for a given quality level. It's also the heaviest, by far, like double. But I mean, is it too heavy? Not really. I mean, obviously people like it, right? I've done it for years. I don't do it currently, but it has been a thing I did. I would consider it. To me, it's something where I don't personally have a real need for one, but I could work it in. Right now my setups, I've got behind me, I've got a red dot on the SBR, which is a 300 blackout. I leave that thing short, suppressed in 300 blackout with supersonics. And that is my, right there, the, oh my God, right now, grab a gun. And it's standard red dot. In this case, it's the Primary Arms Advanced Micro Dot with push button. And I like that because it's tiny, it's light, and when you throw it on the sling, there's no illumination dial or parallax knob or anything else on the body side of it. So when I have it against my body or against my armor, there's nothing grabbing. It slides and moves on your body very nicely. It never catches on anything. And I've used it for years. I like it. That doesn't mean it's ideal. I like it. I don't have any reason to change it. Certainly, I could switch that out for a lot of different things that are similar. But I would try to find something that didn't have that illumination dial on the side. I would want something like that, because when I carry that rifle with armor on, if I'm not using the rifle, it's up and flat on my body, and it is way up. And it catches if I've got something with illumination knob. I've done it, and it's catching on the tops of the magazines. It's catching on if I have any kind of admin pouch. I mean, I've had it get high enough when I was fiddling around with something to catch the top of my armor. Because the rifle was up higher because I was getting it out of my way to do something, usually lean over. And then when I went to put it back down, the illumination knob caught. It's annoying. So a lot of 1 to 4s, 1 to 6s, 1 to 8s, and so on, they have a big knob there because they've got a parallax adjustment and illumination. Just something to consider. But spend the money. If you're going to do it, spend the money and look through it. Find one to look through before you buy, because I mean, as you know, I'm working at Bass Pro these days. I get to look through a whole lot of optics. Like, if we're not busy, I walk over to the optics counter that's right by my desk, and hey, what's the new one? Let me pick that up and take a look. We got everything from $200 to $2,000 sitting right there, and it's interesting to see because it doesn't seem like it's money that determines everything on these, particularly in terms of the viewing area. Some relatively cheap ones are very nice. They don't have a big black ring around them. It's all glass, it's all view. The way it's focused means that you're not seeing this big black circle around your viewing area, which is great. Other ones, despite being expensive, have it. Their glass is gorgeous. Their glass is gorgeous. Great light transmission, super crisp and clean. They got great features, super tough, but they're annoying to use. And I think that's something you have to check. You have to play with them yourself. Honestly, the Strike Eagle to me, I think there's better for the money, but if you want to stick with Vortex for their warranty, it's a good price point to performance. It just feels a little cheap. It isn't, but it feels like they use cheaper turrets, they use cheaper body work, so to speak. It is what it is. That scope gets a lot of hate. It gets a lot of love. I think it is built to a price point, and they did a good job at that price point. If you're comparing it to scopes that are $200 more, you are defeating the purpose by the $200 higher scope. Any of the Vipers, any of the Razors, better. Any of the gold line from Primary Arms, better. Certainly any of the Platinums. Any of the higher end loopholes. But on the other hand, I was looking through that loophole the other day. Wasn't impressed. That was $250. It was a VX. Was not impressed. Certainly, I would not have bought it. And I've looked through some of their other high-end stuff. $1,300, $1,400. And while the glass was wonderful, the usability was limited. For example, it'd be a 1 to 3, and you'd put it at 3, and it was useless. You had to be so perfectly behind that glass. But at 1, it was awesome. But at 1, I might as well have a red dot, or a 2x prism. So moving on, I blabbered about LPVOs long enough. Option 2 is prisms. Oops, sorry guys, that was, I'm sure, very loud for you. The prism everybody knows and loves is the ACOG, and the ACOG is excellent. They come in a few flavors. I'm not a fan of the ones where you've got to be like right on top of it in terms of your eye relief, but they've got a few options and they are wonderful. Very tough, very light, really good image quality. They're kind of the standard, the gold standard of prism optics. But things have moved on. You don't have to spend, $800 to $1,500. This is the Primary Arms one. Vortex has one. The cheaper Vortex I was not a fan of. The higher end Vortex seemed to be very nice. Burris makes some. Loophole has some. It's a thing. Now, I thought it was interesting because nobody voted for the 5X. And I agree, essentially. I think that if you're doing a prism, don't try to make it something that's not. Use the prism as an alternative to a red dot with a magnifier. Use it as an alternative to a red dot without the magnifier. Or use it as a LPVO that you don't need the upper magnification for. So you shaved off all the weight, you shaved off all the bulk, and you've only got that earlier range. This is 2X. I can treat it as a red dot, or I can treat it as a more precise optic. And it just depends on how I mentally use it. If you're just working quickly, you're seeing the bigger ring and you're putting it on target and bang. And that works great. If you want a precise shot, there's a little chevron, or there's the BDC, and you use that and you make your shot. And the beauty of a prism over, say, a red dot, because a red dot is going to be smaller and lighter. Not all of them, but you can get a red dot smaller and lighter. The difference is, let me get this out of frame so YouTube just stops getting pissy. The difference is that a prism always has the reticle. There's no lighting to turn on. There's no washout. If you blow out the reticle on a prism or a LPVO, you can't see your target. I mean, it's pretty much that simple. If you have even a little illumination to give contrast, you're good. And generally speaking, if there's enough light to identify your target, you can see your reticle. There's always these people who are like, you can't see the reticle without it being, super illuminated, blah, blah, blah. If you have a pitch black target that you can't identify, why are you shooting it? I mean, really, if you can't see a black reticle on your target, you shouldn't be shooting it. Now, having a little contrast in mixed lighting absolutely is great. But if you're going to have a reticle, black is usually fine. It's a good point to have. I run mine with just enough illumination that if I put it on something dark, the red highlights it enough for me to see it. If I put it on something light colored or looking into daylight, can't tell the illumination is on. It's kept that low. Now, why would you want that instead of a red dot? The little bit of magnification means that you can make a much more careful shot. Instead of having a dot or a ring and a dot, for example, if you do an EOTech, because I'm including EOTechs and things like that in the red dot category, they give you something where it obscures your target more. Oh, noisy just. We have a air quality warning right now, and they aren't joking. My allergies have been going nuts all day. I wasn't doing that kind of spring cleaning, and yeah, my allergies are pissy. So the red dot, I mean, you might have a 3 mil dot, 3-minute angle dot, a 4-minute angle dot. Very rarely do you have a 1-minute angle dot, but like the EOTech sometimes do that, where you've got a big ring and then you've got a precise dot. Yeah, I mean, that works. But say your eyes aren't so great. Say you've got water on it. Say you've got water on your glasses. It gives this sparkle when things go wrong. Oh my God, my nose. And what happens is your 3-minute angle, your 2-minute angle, your 4-minute angle dot becomes 8, 10, becomes a splotchy pattern, and you can't make a perfect, precise shot. Now, in most purposes, it's fine. I mean, that's not going to be an obstacle, right? But this is a general purpose rifle. This is not a CQB rifle. This is a general purpose rifle. You could be out hunting and be hunting hogs, hunting deer at 6 o'clock in the morning. Dawn is approaching. You are just getting to shooting light and you can't see because there's fog built up on your lens. There is, water vapor, condensation on your lens. Well, if you have a red dot, that can be a problem. If you have a prism, it could be, maybe not, but way less of a problem. But they do tend to still be heavier. They do tend to still be bigger. And they do tend to be still not as ideal for any particular task as either the LPVO at higher magnification or the red dot at no magnification. But, I think that they fit that balancing point for a GP setup the best. Now, red dots, particularly with a magnifier, hit this sweet spot that people really like. And I think that if your primary focus is shit hits the fan in an urban environment, home defense, that kind of thing, absolutely. Just keep in mind your magnifier is critical. Don't go cheap. The mount should be expensive. You don't want junk here, because if that breaks, you have no magnifier. If your mount is not working properly and is not lined up correctly after getting smacked around, you might flip that over and not be able to see a damn thing. So this is not going to be cheap. A good magnifier and red dot is going to cost more than a good LPVO in the same range, or a good prism in the same range. That doesn't mean you can't do it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying keep in mind this is not the budget option. The budget option is a basic red dot with nothing, which I actually think is a perfectly good option for a lot of people. But I think that it is more of a home defense, urban situation, not fully general purpose. I think for general purpose, you need some magnification. Very often, part of the role of a general purpose rifle is the ability to reach out past 50 or 100 yards. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not in an ideal situation, but you can do it. Red dots with no magnifier, you might as well have iron sights, and even iron sights might be better. They're fast, they're not precise, and they don't help you at longer ranges. If you're going to do that, you better spend the money on a high-end one. But yeah, not my ideal option. So I used the Aimpoint magnifier kit the other day, and I also used the EOTech magnifier kit. Both were very nice. They both, for me, EOTechs are horrible. I don't like how they look on their own. With the magnifier, I was a convert. I was like, ooh, that's nice. That view improved. It crisped up the reticle, because for me, the reticle is too fuzzy. For some people, it's relatively crisp. For other people, it's very fuzzy. For me, it's very fuzzy, which is weird because most red dots aren't, but it's the hologram versus, For me, I didn't like it. Add the magnifier, and it changed the whole thing. And they weren't particularly heavy. They were adjustable, so you could raise or lower the height of that magnifier. I liked it. I thought it was very good. But you're talking a total price of like $800 for the whole setup. I think at that point, I would probably be really tempted to do a good 1-6 or 1-8. I would have a hard time not doing that. I think that a Viper or a used Razor, like a Razor 1-6, from back in the day, would be the thing. Or get the Prism, get a high-end Prism, get a Trijicon ACOG, get a, I still really like that Primary Arms Gold line. I know it's budget, but quality-wise, it competes way out of its price range in terms of the optical quality. So, I think it's one of those things you have to use one to appreciate where it stands in the lineup of things. Because I've used a lot of other stuff, was not terribly impressed, and some of it costs twice as much money. So, but that's kind of the run through. Anybody have anything, what they want to talk about their setup? Anybody want to, add something? Tell me I'm an idiot about something, like situational stuff. So the person who just came in, if you want to add anything, add anything. We're talking about the optics and run through the set. And now it's just, what is people's preferences? Well, how do people look at it? Because my choice has pretty much become, if I'm not doing the Prism, it's probably just a red dot, because I'm going for minimum weight, minimum size, least likely to snag on anything. I'm getting it with no knob on the side, lowest possible profile, right? An LPVO, to me, I'm more inclined to go the next step. And honestly, a 1-10 kind of gets into that next step. but like my DMR style setup is a 2.5 to 10, and that works for me. I think that that's at 2.5, it's pretty quick, but it's still too heavy for truly being a general purpose optic. So who's in here? Come on, guys, comment, say something. At least one person's been in here pretty much the whole time, unless that's Marina at work and she just left it running while she's working, which would not surprise me. Well, in that case, I think I'm going to call it because I turned off my air conditioning to do this, and it is, what is it, 90 in here? Okay, it says it's only 77, but it feels like 85 in here. My fan is going, but it doesn't need to be doing anything. So take care, have fun, stay safe. My strongest advice is to go to the store, even if you're not buying it there. Go to the store and pick up any optic you're considering and look through it, because I've been extremely surprised, both quality, performance, and relative quality. You know, you pick up 3 or 4 of them in the same price range, and it isn't always the brand you expect that is the best. And it isn't always the most expensive that is the best. And I think that if you don't pick them up and play with them, you're just guessing, you're just hoping. You know, if you don't have friends with a bunch of different options, if you don't have a store with a bunch of options, order them from somewhere that you can return them, and order all of the ones on your list. Pull out that credit card, spend the money, and then return them. I mean, if they offer the return policy, they offer the return policy, do it. Because until you look at them and compare them, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've gone through a lot of optics over the years, and it always surprises me how good or bad things can be. And, you know, I've got my priorities. I can say that, you know, this is the best for me. Your priorities may be different, and your eyes may be different, and your budget is probably different. I mean, nobody is spending the exact same amount of money and looking at it the same way. I tend to fall into is it good enough on optics? And is it good enough for a particular task? I would rather spend more money on the optic than I have to in order to get a little more quality. But on the other hand, I can't afford to spend 2 grand on high-end optics all the time. You know, like I have to balance this out. And so I'm not buying, you know, the razor as much as I would love to. You know, I get a discount on Vortex. It's not that big. You know, I need to look at what the Viper option is. Again, it's been a while, because I wouldn't mind setting up a 1:6 or 1:8 as an option. I can change it out on it's for the red dot, because I've got a LaRue mount on that red dot. And if I put a LaRue mount on an LPVO, swap, I can do whatever I want with it, right? That is something I've considered, rather than changing that red dot out to the 2X, because the 2X does have that knob that I don't like. It isn't the end of the world. On that rifle, it sits lower on my body, so that knob doesn't tend to snag on anything. It's on the magazines or below them. But I've had it sit below them, and when I went to pick up the rifle, it hit the bottom of the magazines, and I had to, you know, bring it out and around. So, you know, it's a thing. One of the things I look at on LPVOs is how big is that focus knob, and can I get the illumination to not be on that knob? Can we move that onto the objective lens or ocular lens? Yeah, the ocular. So anyway, that is it. I'm going to get my air conditioning turned back on. This is going to be a short one at half an hour, unless somebody chimes in. If anybody's got something, we can keep going. I'll turn up my fan, you know, or something. I don't know. Come on, guys, chime in here. little audience participation. That was kind of the point of this, and nobody is talking. That I do really appreciate, and to the one person or two people listening, I do really appreciate the fact that people responded to the poll, because it gave me an idea of where people were leaning and where to put my emphasis. Because otherwise, I probably would have spent twice as much time talking about prisms and straight red dots. Okay, I'm out. Take care. Have fun. Stay safe. Keep shooting, guys.